All right, future tour. So with that, I'd like to turn it over to Kevin.
All right. Well, thank you. I'll take this the rest of the way, but you hear I've got a puppy in the background here that's barking, so hopefully she'll quiet down. I have to put my headset on. Um, it's wonderful. It's the sponsors that make these meetings possible. So I really want to acknowledge our meeting sponsors for today's meetings. I want to know, Mark Perret, are you on? I didn't see Mark log in yet. Okay, I don't see Mark. Well, Mark is with Parrot Samgen Architects. So just want to acknowledge them and thank them for being a sponsor for this meeting. And also we do have McGenna, and McGenna, I'm gonna let you go ahead and introduce yourself with the right last name pronunciation of Able Services. So McGenna, you're up. Please introduce yourself, who you are, and I'll bring up your presentation.
Sure. Hi, everyone. Great to be here. My name is Migena Agaray. I am with Able Services. And I want to thank everyone for the opportunity to provide a short presentation of who Able is. And just want to, yes, thank you. I'm trying to work with two different screens here, but okay, great. So who Able is? Able Services is the largest U.S. family-owned provider of engineering, building maintenance, and integrated facility management solutions. It started in 1926 from a 3-man window cleaning team, and it grew into the largest family-owned janitorial company in the country. We operate in 43 different states in over 1.3 billion square foot of space in the entire country. We have about 17,000 employees, and we service over 3,000 clients nationwide. Our capabilities, I don't want to bore everyone with each and every one of them, but just to mention, on the building maintenance side, janitorial maintenance, on the engineering side, to name a few, HVAC, plumbing, lighting, procurement, safety trainings, labor audits, etc. Moving on the next slide. We are a culture of safety first culture, to include injury and illness prevention, hazard communication, safety trainings, and we have a safety department that educates our employees on personal safety training, but not just our employees, but our managers as well. We take safety very seriously. Quality insurance. We understand clients' expectations. Our main goal is to ensure our clients are satisfied and they see us as a partner, not necessarily as a service provider. And we have been very successful. Even though we started on the West Coast, we've grown tremendously on the East Coast over the last 15 to 20 years, both on the engineering side and janitorial side. Business. A commitment to sustainability, green partnerships and certifications, green cleaning products and programs, FOMA 360, LED, SIMS, and you guys see the rest over here. I'm trying to go through all the slides over here, so perhaps we can skip one.
And this is the last.
This is the last one. This is a contact for our Able headquarters in San Francisco, but I am currently speaking from our New York office. We proudly have offices in over 43 states, and again, I just wanted to thank everyone for allowing us to give a mini presentation of who we are. We can speak for hours or days about Able, but glad to be here. Lorraine, who is a member of IFMA New Jersey, speaks highly of you, and I'm glad I got to participate today, and thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Miguel. And so it's time to segue over to our featured speaker. And so I'll talk a little bit before I introduce them about a meeting that I attended when I was with Becton Dickinson. I sat in on a meeting when Becton Dickinson was acquiring Bard, and they were talking about automation. Specifically, they were talking about how they were going to automate the account financial close process. And when you listen to what they were going to do, the changes they were going to make in financial closing, I don't want to bore you with the details, but you looked at probably 3/4 of the people that did financial close in the organization were not going to be needed anymore because you could automate these processes. It was saying anything you do repetitively could be automated, and it was amazing to hear that. So I was excited to hear that we got to get Dr. Dean Khashoggi, PhD, PE, IFMA fellow. He's a director, adjunct professor, retired full professor. I'll let him introduce himself. He's an innovator, researcher of cutting-edge technology in the areas of project management, risk management, procurement, and performance information. He's going to tell you more about himself, but I'm very excited to have him present now on our topic of today, FM in the age of artificial intelligence and automation. Dr. Khashoggi, I hand it over to you.
Well, thank you very much. Can you all hear me?
Yes.
Very good. Let's move along here. I think the subject matter is very interesting, and it's all I've done my whole career. So even when it wasn't very popular, we were doing this for the simple reason that we were looking for efficiency and effectiveness. By the way, thank you for the sponsors, and also thank you for the roundtable discussion you had, because it's very interesting. I have an interesting thought, and the thought is, it's not whether a service is outsourced or in-house. It's who the people are and how they operate. Right? I mean, if I was an outsourced service, I would demand to live in your home, in your building. And no one should ever realize whether I'm outsourced or in-house. I don't know if that makes sense. That's not the problem we're having. The problem is slightly different. Well, by observation, I believe that the C-suite, which is the chief executive officer, financial officer, information officer, and operating officers, they don't really care about how we do janitorial work or how we maintain buildings. All they want to see is cheaper costs and better services. How many of you would agree with me there? Yeah, they're not interested in the latest gee whiz and in green buildings or anything. They just, hey, if green buildings are a requirement, they want somebody else to come in and to do it. They don't want to get like into the expertise of green buildings, if that makes any sense to everyone. So basically, I believe if the quote FM professionals are going to penetrate the C-suite, they're going to have to like penetrate into that C-suite where no one should know that they're a technical expert in facility management. They're going to have to talk their language, which is lower cost, higher quality. We can do it quick. If we have a problem, it'll get solved. Which is interesting because a lot of professionals have felt that that's not where they want to go. It's quite interesting. Now, I also believe that the FM associates, the ones who do the work, need to be the technical experts, right? They need to know what's going on. They need to be able to understand what they must do without any management direction and control from the FM professional. So for the FM professionals, they need to get more work. Or no, I said that wrong. They need to be get more responsibility, but less work. Does that make sense to everyone? That's the only way that they're going to survive. And of course, they need to communicate in terms of something simple that the C-suite can understand without thinking and without doing any type of homework. And like I said before, the FM associates are really the core of the FM profession. They need to be experts. They need to be the ones who know all the technical answers. If I'm an FM professional, I am, quote, whether it's in-house or outsourced, I'm just going to tell them the problem and ask them to get rid of the problem. I shouldn't have to tell them for the C-suite personnel, you have to, quote, respond quickly. Whether they're in-house or outsourced. I mean, if they're outsourced and I have to tell them that, I don't think I'll keep them around. They have to have expertise, and it has to be the FM associates. So basically, everyone knows automation is taking over. We can see it all around us. Artificial intelligence, what is that? It's basically the brains of any type of automation. It is the logic systems. It's the replacement of human cognitive processing. Is everybody comfortable with these definitions? So if we're going to, quote, look into the future and become more efficient and effective, immediately, these are the things that just jump out at you. The experts will try to change the order of activities to make it more efficient and effective. They'll try to cut out any type of duplication. Communication, documentation. This has to be minimized. And therefore, the experts will do this because they won't pass technical documentation to, quote, the owner. They will have it. They will tell the owner, we have it and it's here. But they're not going to communicate any of this to anybody. In essence, in order to increase the efficiency and value of FM services, some of the paradigms that we've traditionally had for many, many years will actually be challenged. Now, what are experts? Experts, simply put, can be identified by even people who are not experts. The first thing, experts can tell the difference. They can tell the difference between my left hand and my right hand. They can tell the difference between a CEO and somebody who's low-level technical work. They can tell the difference who's the boss and who's not the boss. They can tell the difference between, quote, what other FMs do, FM services, and what they can do. They can tell the difference. And because they can tell the difference, they can always see what the current conditions are and what the future conditions could be, which means they can see into the future. They know how to change the conditions using their expertise. And it's not that they're actually going to control the change. They just understand what happens over time. They understand natural laws, so they can see into the future. And the last thing experts know is they can't make people think. In other words, they understand that they're an expert, which means as they look around at all the other stakeholders, they realize that these people aren't experts in what they do. And so they know how to make it simple. And by making it simple, they communicate in terms of metrics, they talk less, and they make sure the job is done. These are experts. Now, people think, well, shoots, we got experts all over the place. I propose to you the number of experts in any organization is limited. The experts are people who can tell the difference, see into the future, and make things simple. The majority of the people who are in every organization are not comfortable with this. They can't do this. So then it behooves an organization to be able to identify and utilize expertise in their own organization. And most organizations can't do this. Whether they're on the owner side or they're on the outsourced vendor side, they can't do this. And that is why we have an issue. Because in order to do this, you're going to have to identify who the experts are, and you're going to have to utilize them in a different way. Everybody knows when you bring automation in, and all automation is minimizing the need for human cognitive processing. When you bring automation in, it makes experts more valuable. That's the key. Thinking, decision-making, it's not part of automation. I just rode a Lyft cab the other day. I got into the Lyft in Los Angeles, about 30 minutes away from the international airport. And it was a Korean who was driving the car. He didn't know how to speak English, right? He had a camera up on top. He had a big display board. And of course, using Lyft, I could see exactly who it was and where we're going. He did not speak English to us. People think, oh no, we have to have the touchy-feely. We have to communicate with you. I propose to everyone, the future is not going to be what we think it is today. Anything that takes memorization, cognitive processing, memorization, it's going to be replaced. Even the most riskiest type jobs, they're going to be replaced. We used to think that if we had enough cheap labor, we could compete. But we all know today China is the #1 country of users of robotics and artificial intelligence. They're the only ones that can compete or have a chance in the future to compete with the United States. And they're pouring a lot of resources into it, but they're still not as good as the United States is. If you go into any plant, go back 5 years, you don't see the humans standing on the assembly line anymore. Yes, it's the replacement of the cognitive human processing, which means not only can they replace a simplistic repetitive task, which is blue-collar work. No, they're after bigger game. Who has the bigger game? It's the guys who go to college. It's the guys who can look at something, right? And understand all the different activities that must go on, the planning, right? The prioritization, the trying to, quote, make it more efficient and effective. This is where artificial intelligence is going. They're after the white collar jobs, right? And so this is why people are so they're disturbed about it, because they thought that they had a job that had value until they died. No, I always tell people in FM, if you're older than me, we don't have to worry about all this stuff because we survived. Right? It's the younger people that are going to have to figure this out. And that's something like some of the older guys, like they don't like appreciate what I bring because they're saying no, because they want to be the teachers. They want to be the experts who teach other people how to be experts, but they're teaching people practices of the past. This is going to have to change. Now, I love this. I've been using this slide for like, I think at least 3 or 4 years. And the reason I like this slide is because you see the robot, right? That's laying brick. But you see one human being in the background. And that human being is a finisher. And the question is, why do we need him? Because he's too expensive to replace. He becomes the expert. Now, do we need more of them or fewer of them? Definitely fewer. And the ones who are around who are experts, are they quicker or slower? Are they more highly skilled or less skilled? Is their value and pay going up or going down? In quote, an environment of automation. The experts are the people who can't be automated. And their value actually goes up, which is, you know, it's a paradigm shift for people. They can't figure this out. Because most people can't tell the difference. Because they can't tell the difference, they can't see into the future, right? And they think the more complicated the job is, more technical it is, the more, quote, security they have. They're wrong, right? Because expertise are people who don't communicate their expertise to others because they don't need to. They just do their job. They're more accountable. And for, you know, a lot of people in FM, they're all in FM. They never go out and look at, you know, what's being automated outside of the FM community. And it's amazing. And what's even more amazing, the people who are automating systems don't have any expertise in what they're automating. That's the amazing thing, right? Their profession, their expertise is just automating stuff. So they go out there and they see something that they need. They realize that they would like to have it. And a lot of these kids are students, so they're doing this in college. Right? And they're just automating systems, and then, but they still need experts to come in and say, how good is our automation? And it is the experts who utilize the automation that are the ones who are going to be ahead. Anything, once again, that takes memory will be automated, right? So this is a quote, a restaurant that has been open on the West Coast and has been open for some time. And basically, anytime somebody comes in and makes an order and puts their name in, all their information is remembered forever. And they can order things quickly and get their food cooked in less than a couple minutes, right? And it's always done, quote, the optimal way. Well, this is not a new idea. The Dutch have always been experimenting on actually identifying value. So they took people in procurement with 20 years experience. How valuable is this experience? So they took a computer model and they didn't want to spend a lot of money on it. Researchers hate spending money. So they took like minimal information that these, quote, experienced professionals had and created a computer model. And then they wanted one more benchmark. They wanted, hey, what if we had somebody who knew absolutely nothing, right? How good are they? In other words, they're guessing all the time. And they ran this test. Well, look at the scores. Of course, the computer did the best. This is with minimal information. The students who knew nothing did better than the professionals who had 20 years experience. Now, anything that gets this kind of results, the researcher who did it, they pass, right? They get their PhD or their DB or whatever they're going. But they then take the study and they stick it where the sun never shines, right? Because this is what we call disruptive technology, right? This was back in 2000, right? Why doesn't every professional know about this? It's because this is disruptive, which tells you something about our professions. Our professions don't want to be replaced. So anything that threatens us, we stick it in some place that nobody's going to find it. Does that make sense to everyone? It's why nobody gets this type of thing. So in quote, automation, we're trying to get all the humanistic processing going on, the cognitive processing going on, and we don't want to do any of it. And we're going to try to just, by observation, see what's going on, make it simple. And the simplest thing we're going to do is identify and utilize expertise. The simplest thing, right? And it better be efficient in effectiveness, which means right off the top, are we going to have more people doing this or fewer people? Is it going to be like harder to do or simpler to do?
Simpler, less people.
Absolutely. Now, why doesn't this take off? Well, because in our humanistic way of thinking, we like to collaborate. So we bring everybody in. And do all you notice this? Like whenever IFMA wants to do something, they try to have like a lot of people collaborating on this. But somebody is always different. And they're different because they're fearful of not knowing enough. And because they're fearful, if we had a system like that could just scan FM experts, FM associates, FM professionals, we could just scan them and it would tell us, give us a reading that told us exactly how good they were. Would that ever get done in IFMA? No, no, because not everybody's the same. And everybody has a different agenda. And that's why it's so hard to bring change. Why are we having so much change going on? Because of the automation. And if people don't change, they'll get automated right out. Because non-experts see experts say, oh, no, we don't want them around. They're afraid of them. We have to create a different environment. To take the person out who fears it, let the experts fly, and make sure that the experts who fly can see into the future, tell the difference and make it simple, take more accountability, and of course, because they're experts, they're cheaper. All these concepts, you know, people are very uncomfortable with these concepts, right? But it's the future. Now that we can see around nature and see, quote, with cameras, right? Things that we never could see before. We begin seeing things that, wow, you mean animals can do this naturally? Oh my goodness, can porpoises actually jump 20 feet in the air without a trainer holding a fish up there? We never knew this was possible. We thought we had to have a trainer. We thought we had to educate everybody. We thought unless we educate people, people won't get good enough to do something. But where you see true expertise, you'll begin to see that they're not educated. If you look at everybody in society, how many people can actually observe, tell the difference, see into the future, and minimize any decision-making because they actually can tell what will happen before it happens? It's my old water bottle joke. If I run 100 tests of releasing the water bottle, how many of you could predict what would happen in the 100 tests before I ran any of the 100 tests? Yeah. And would you have to think about this a lot? Or make decisions on what's going to happen? Because you're experts in the law of gravity. We finally figured out that experts can actually tell the difference, see into the future, and make it simple, and they're in the minority of society. It's the simple truth. Most people want to get educated more. They want more information. They want complexity. They need more details because it's who they are. Well, the question is, how can we get the non-observant people, the ones who are, quote, need to think about everything, etc., how can we get them to get results like the observant person? It's very simple. We bring in automation. So we take, quote, all the professionals who represent the client, and we tell them, you're going to be an information worker. You're going to learn a new expertise, which is how to know almost everything without knowing anything. You're going to be able, in short order, to identify who an expert is, to let the expert tell us exactly what they're going to do and how they're going to do it. And you're going to be able to cut costs and have better performance all at the same time. And the only reason this can be done is, number one, we've been testing this thing out for about 25 years, and we found out that one person who's thinking like this can actually do the work of 10. If this wasn't possible, then, quote, we would have to keep doing what we're doing. But it is possible. All it is that some people will implement, quote, automated systems, and they will hire experts who are experts, who will use these automated systems and be doing the quality control, and all the other professionals have to do is make sure that these automated systems are being utilized, which means they don't have to know anything technical. All they need to know is, I know how to bring in that, quote, ERP system and get the work done 50% faster and 30% cheaper. And because I'm not technical anymore, what can I do this with? Anything that the C-suite needs. Wow. How do we use this information? For example, if we're going to make things simple and we're going to, quote, make things transparent, we're going to use a new language. Our language is the language of metrics. And the metrics only have two requirements. Number one, it has to be observable. So everybody can see I'm holding a bottle of water. Number two, it has to be countable, which means I'm holding one bottle of water. Anything that's not observable and is not countable, we're not using. because two people disagree, and when they disagree, they'll start doing what? This. And once we start doing this, it gets back to the traditional system of let's collaborate, let's all agree, let's do that. When the majority of them are probably non-observant. No, we're going to use metrics. So all I have to say is I need an ERP system that covers everything we have in our organization. And these are some metrics that anybody can go and count. Now, I want an expert to come in and I want them to tell me, can they do my unique job? Not a totally like a huge, like worldwide corporation's job. Not a real small job, my size of an organization. We need an ERP system. And I want them to tell me, how do they know that they can do it? Knowing that if I found a vendor that says, I've done 2 of these projects, and these are the metrics from the projects we've had, and our time and cost deviation is almost nothing, and we got rated at a 9.5 average on the 2 projects. And the same guy who did this is going to do your project. My goodness, I have found an expert. Is there any questions on this, what I'm proposing here? And so now the non-observant people, all they need to do is use this quote, structural system of metrics and instructions, and they will get the same outstanding results, which may cut costs by 30%, cut time by 30%, and make it so you can't tell the difference between the outsourced and the in-house. Why? Because we're going to hire somebody who's an expert who realize how to utilize their own expertise in their own organization, knowing that you don't hire or utilize the expert for everything. So we've semi-automated the procurement, and it matches everybody's requirements. I mean, people say, well, you can't do this in government. Yeah, you can. Right? We just modified it a little, and it works fine. We just ran a government job for a procurement group that attended an NIGP or procurement organization, and people just say, look, Dr. Dean, you can't do it here. Our environment won't take it. So in order to make them believe it, we tell them, we'll take one organization and we'll do it for you for no cost. What? No cost. Well, it better be simple. It better be straightforward. We don't have to do much because it's supposed to be simple. And the structure's already made. Dang, they said, we'll do it. It's a janitorial service requirement for a city. And we went in there and found through the process a janitorial service that cut the quote, what people perceived should be the cost, by 30%. They were amazed. And what's going to happen on every project? Everybody will be able to see the time and cost factor. Non-technical. This is how much was budgeted, this is how much was paid, and this was over, and this is who caused it. And we will have a milestone schedule for everything. Now, this is a project, right? If you go into a service, it'll be slightly different. But this is a schedule. And then we have an actual schedule. Wherever the initial schedule does not match the actual, that's a deviation. And when they have a deviation, The people who cause the deviation are identified. The time and cost that it costs with the deviation is easily described. Then, because we want to utilize expertise, during the project or during the service, every week, we want the expert to look around and he can see risk coming because he can see into the future. We want that expert to tell us what he's concerned about and what he sees or she sees as risk that's coming down the road. So by the time, if the risk actually occurs, everybody knew it. And they know it wasn't the fault of the expert. But what we find out by having the expert do risk mitigation, we have all the people who are stakeholders who don't actually have the expertise, and everybody does their job. It's an amazing phenomenon to watch. Conclusion? We think it's the future. We think that the professionals will become information workers, and they actually will speak the language of the C-suite. We also believe the FM associates have to become the technical experts. And you can actually seeing that how this is going to work out in all of the FM chapters, IFMA chapters, because the number of, quote, associates is on the rise. And the number of professionals is dwindling. Even on the, quote, international, the IFMA level, you can see now people who are, quote, used to be associates rising to like the top of some of the organizations in the foundation and the IFMA organization. People don't quite understand what's going on. They're doing it to survive. But it is the future. That is my contribution for the day. Was that enough?
Well, thank you. Hope you can hear me. Dr. Dean, I'm going to call you Dr. Dean. There are some questions that came up in the chat. So
let's hear them.
Let me pull them up here. So hang on, let me change screens. All right, so let's go with the first one. The first one was asking, did you ever hear of a website called willrobotstakemyjob.com?
No, I haven't.
Okay, so I'll shoot that over to you, maybe something to take a look at. Okay, the next one. This is a question for someone saying,
can I go back to the first question?
yeah, go ahead, please.
Now, when people say robots, right, we're thinking of like some kind of robot that's like a machine that like looks like a human that kind of replaces us, right? But you have to remember that robotics are actually information systems, right? And basically the target of AI today, of information systems, is no longer blue collar. It's actually white collar. Anything that's repetitive, anything that uses an equation, anything that's logical, anything that has to be memorized, right? These are prime like opportunities for AI. So addressing that point on, you know, are they going to take our jobs, right? I think anybody who doesn't have an area of expertise that has variation in it, it might be prime targets for robotics and information systems. Okay.
What about the impact of COVID? I think you've seen that COVID has actually, or say the response to COVID has accelerated some of these. Let's say this meeting we're having here. We're all sitting in our rooms, in our homes, and we're Zooming, and this we wouldn't have thought of. We didn't have remote meetings a year ago. So do you think COVID is going to have any impact on this, either moving it faster or slower, this automation?
I think your observation that COVID is bringing automation in at a much higher rate is absolutely accurate. You know, facilities don't have the value that they had before COVID. Because of the technology and the platforms, you know, I don't think we'll ever return to what we used to think of as facilities. Right? I mean, I think it's going to be drastically different. It just sped it up. And I don't know how many of you have gone into and heard about what's happening in the services area. Like, for example, the people who are, you know, into hospitality, hotels, etc. Right? I mean, many of these organizations in places where it used to be like a hotspot for tourism and vacation, like Hawaii, right? A lot of them closed down. And as soon as they closed down, everybody lost their jobs. And then they told everybody, but we think we're going to come back. So you have to apply for your jobs, reapply. And guess which ones are going to get work? They used it as an excuse to downsize. They used it as an excuse to now bring in new systems, new requirements, right? So unions must hate this, right? Because basically, they're trying to become more efficient and effective. And they don't want to lose their expertise, but they're going to bring in automation and AI systems, right? That's going to reduce the need for human beings. So you're spot on. This thing just jumped it up. I mean, this thing makes my presentation a lot more valuable because people can now see it. Great question.
Another question here was, I think we all understand the impact. I think you might have answered it, but I'll go ahead and answer it. I think we all understand the potential impact of automation on blue collar jobs. Like you showed, it's amazing to see that bricklaying machine, how automation. But I think we may have answered it. But do you see an impact more on white collar jobs in the future? Or do you think we might get to a situation where there are a bigger impact on white collar versus blue collar, or do you think they're both going to be impacted similarly?
Well, I think blue collar jobs, if you do something repetitive, that can be replaced, your job will always be at risk. But the white collar jobs are the real target of artificial intelligence today. For those of you who have seen something called artificial intelligence put on by PBS called AI Frontline. I don't know how many of you have seen that. Oh, you need to see it. And the guy flat out comes out and says, the makers of AI and robotics, they're looking at white collar jobs, secretarial work, people who do accounting, they're engineering work. They're just going to go through these areas and slaughter it. Right now, my language is a little like abrasive. That's what they're going to do. But if you see that, it's called, is that the right title? Yeah, they go into Lansing, and one of the union workers is asked, the plant that you have today that has robotics, if you were to use union people, what is the difference? And he said, 5 years ago, we employed 7,500 people in this plant in Lansing. Today, the total requirement is less than 750. Now, what's the drawback of that? They have one of the highest unemployment and poverty rates going on. Right, because the people can't adjust. Right, the people who are there, who used to have very decent jobs, they have no way to get re-educated on the fly. Plus, they're thinking differently. It's the thinking differently that's the real enemy.
Okay, here's a good question. I'm going to change it a little bit. The question originally was, will a physician eventually be replaced by AI, or does a personal interaction between a doctor and a patient result in a collaboration? I'm sorry, or would it be or would it be a doctor collaboration with AI? And so let's ask this also from a facilities manager's perspective. How do you see AI affecting facilities management? Will there always be a facilities manager? And how would the facility manager and AI interface with our customers?
Well, I believe, let's address the doctors first.
Yes.
I have the unique opportunity that I was in the Air Force for 14 years. And I found out that I had a lack of flexibility. So I went in, and on my separation from the military, they gave me a complete scan and everything. And the doctor asked me, touch your toes, right? And I said, I can't do that. And the doctor said, why can't you? I said, because I need to warm up. I need more flexibility. I just can't, you know, at a drop of a hat, somebody asked me to touch my toe, I can't do it. And she said, are you a doctor? And I said, no. She said, then we don't want to listen to you because you're not an expert. And they scanned me. I'm the most scanned guy probably around. And because she labeled me as disabled, and for those of you who will have a chance to see me live or see me in person, you know, you might wonder why I'm disabled. I'm disabled because that doctor identified me as disabled and told me that my back, right, my disc were totally like shattered and that I should not do any type of physical activity. And I was 20% disabled. Today, I'm the most scanned person. I am serviced like 100% through the VA. And I can tell you that the person responsible for my well-being is me. And the doctors and the PAs, anybody who's involved in servicing me, I always ask them, what are you doing? Tell me how you're going to solve my problem, and tell me how I can know that you're doing the right thing. And I can tell you that whether it's a doctor or a PA, I mean, it doesn't make a difference anymore. I know more about my body and what's going on in me than any of the doctors. So I can tell you that I don't know how they're going to maintain this level of professionalism among doctors. But I actually believe that sooner or later, they're going to come under an umbrella of people telling them what to do. And that has probably already started. So the next question is, how is this going to affect FM? I actually believe that the people who are older, they can ride it out. They can retire. They survived. The younger people have to be thinking, how do I add value, right? And if I'm a professional working in an organization, I actually want to show dominant value. And the more I have to talk to the C-suite, the more I must realize I am at risk. I need to show in a simple way that I can cut their costs by 20%, 30%, and get better performance. And it's not by explaining anything technical. On the other side, the associates are going to have to be better experts and are going to have to, quote, know what is the difference? What's going to happen as we do our service? Who are experts in our own organization? And when do I utilize these experts? And these experts who are actually, I believe, gifted in the sense that it's in their DNA. They're not like heavily educated and trained in most cases. They're just experts in what they do. These guys are going to become very valuable in the FM environment. And every organization must realize, look at their people, must identify who they are and how to utilize them. A simple way, do we have more questions behind this? Or is this the last question?
What I want to do is I'd like to open it up. Anybody have a question you'd like to ask live? Anyone? Just unmute yourself and go ahead. No?
I have one. Dr. Dean, yeah, I'd been to your presentation at World Workplace, so thank you. I couldn't wait to get back tonight to hear you again. But I was the one asked the doctor question. And what it is, I spent a lot of time a year or two back with IBM. Went to their conference. They came to our campus. They had lots of ideas about smart buildings, smart cities, and the benefits of having a cognitive structure under their IBM Watson label. I went to dinner. During that time, I went to dinner. What happened to be a neurologist that was at the table, and I was all full of the IBM, the Jeopardy show where Watson beat the champions. And I'm yapping all about all of that. And I told the doctor, I says, I read an article from Memorial Sloan Kettering that Watson can read all of the medical journals and every research paper ever written in probably minutes and come out with probabilities of patient outcomes. And they proved that the outcomes have improved. And I said, do you see that as something that you would partner with? And he was very uncomfortable with that. Very uncomfortable. He said, one thing that you need to know, I know you, I know my patients, and you can't, how do you get out of AI knowing someone and say and I'll bring that over to facilities management, facilities management. So you are dealing with humans. And so how do we set our metrics, we do all the good things there, but when it boils down to it, you do have to have these interactions with others. So it brought me back to that doctor example, just, this big debate. He happened to be a neurologist, so that made it even more interesting, so I just wanted to get your thoughts about the human side of facilities management versus the AI side of it.
I'm very comfortable with an AI utilized system, as long as they can tell me who I am, what's going on with me, and how they're going to solve my problems. Am I making sense here? Like, for example, I went to the Mayo Clinic.
Yes, tangible.
I actually had a case, which was very rare, where I couldn't walk. And what they found out, that blood went into my spinal cord. And it was rare, like it's 1 out of a million people. And so the radiologist, right, who ran the MRI said, we know what's wrong with you, we just don't know how to solve it. So then I went to the neurologist, and they're supposed to tell me how to solve it. But they came back to me and said, after taking a lot of my time, getting a lot of information, they told me, we're going to have to do more testing on you. I said, to do what? They said, we don't know. That's why we want to do testing. And we want to do invasive testing. As soon as I heard the word invasive, I said, does that mean you're going to get into my spinal cord? They go, yes. I asked them a simple question. What are you looking for? And they told me, we don't know. That's why we want to do testing, because you're so rare. And then they said, but there is the neural surgeon. And there are even fewer of these around, right, with expertise. He came out and talked to me because they wanted me to talk to the surgeon. And the surgeon said, Dean, the place you have the problem is a very delicate place. There are a lot of nerves in there. He said, if you can't take the pain, we can operate. But if we operate, we don't have the technology or the expertise to go in there and get out and make you just like you were before you got hurt. I said, give me an example. He said, Well, when you come out of our operation, there is a chance that your 2 feet may not agree on the elevation that you're walking on. He said, so this is a real possibility. So if you can accept that to get rid of your pain, he said, I would suggest that we operate on you, but if you can in any way find another way to get rid of the pain, we would recommend that. And he told me this in about 5 minutes. I said, I'll take care of it. So they don't actually know what the answers are. So I don't care how many journal papers the quote, the AI, the Watson, IBM Watson reads. It's always in terms of probability and not knowing. In any case, if I was some owner of a facility, I would always ask the person, are you an expert? Can you tell the difference? Can you see into the future? And can you tell me how you're going to make our facility better? And I have some requirements for that. Any change is going to cause disruption. Any change is going to cause risk. So when I ask, can you make it better? It better not be by 1% or 2%. It better be by 30%. And if they can't do it, guess what I'm doing? I'm staying with the status quo. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense.
And that's what, is going on, and people are just hanging on, right? So they're saying, well, so-and-so tried this and it doesn't work. But the problem is, because automation's in the mix now, I would propose to young people who are very visionary that they run some tests and see what the impact is. Because, there are a lot of people who they stand in the camp of, no, we don't want to change. And some people say it's got to change. But I always, if I walk my own path, I'm a visionary. I would always recommend to the visionary, run a test. Does that make sense? And I would never say, we're going to do this with everything in FM. Why? Because it's not the time. And human beings are in that environment. So they're going to cause pushback. Like in engineering, right? I mean, I definitely know, as a registered civil engineer, as a PhD in engineering, and as somebody whose expertise was civil engineering, I know that 90% of what a civil engineer learns in 4 years is today. They don't need to know that. Flat out don't need to know it, right? We can go into the construction industry and things that have happened that cause huge risk, that cost billions of dollars. It's only because the people are non-observant, but they're part of the industry. So it's not going to change overnight. So I think each person must look at their situation, must walk their own path. But I guarantee to young people who are not offended by becoming an information worker that they have tremendous capability in the FM community.
Hey, Dr. Dean, I want to ask one more question that was prior. It's going to kind of close it out. It's a very important question, and we'll close. So the question is, and I'll add to it a little bit, how do we future-proof our children? And let me add to that. And let's say our younger FMs under our guidance, or if you're younger FM, how do you future-proof yourself to be able to compete or complement this AI you're talking about? How do we, our children and our younger FMs, how do they compete in this world now? What do you think the keys would be for them?
Okay, this is actually a very complicated question because it requires some understanding in why does everything happen the way it happens. And there is a logic that we use as the base for creating this, quote, AI-like system. But today, with our current technology, we now know that how a child is raised and what environment they're raised in is actually programmed in them before they're born. We know this for a fact. In other words, if you knew this, would you try to change or educate your child more or less? If you already knew that they were programmed with their strengths and weaknesses and what they were going to do in our environment. We actually have taken this quote, technical AI-oriented procurement project management system, and simplified it where they're now teaching this to high school students. And where the high school students can actually learn 5 times as fast and know what they don't need to know now and what they actually need to know. So, I mean, this is going to impact our education system more than anything else. And the only reason I'm confident in this, I was in, quote, the education system at the highest level. And I now realize that they're just trying to survive. They're trying to make money. What the kids are taught, they don't need to know 80 to 90% of what they're being taught. That is why I think it's Google, right, has created their own education system that can be done in 6 months. And they're guaranteeing that the kids who come in, who qualify, that when they step out of their 6-month education, that they'll be paid like a 4-year grad out of a university. Does everybody know about this?
Oh, it's the first I'm hearing.
No, it's they have offered it and they're starting it up because they realize what's going on in the education, right? It's a lot of it is a waste because it doesn't match our future environment.
Wow. Well, listen, we can go all night on this topic. Thank you so much, Dr. Dean, for sharing your expertise. This is a lot of food for thought that you provided for us. But I'm excited to see the program when it was given, and I think you delivered 100% of what we were looking for. So thank you so much. Thanks to all of them that have attended. Thanks to those that asked questions. Thanks to our sponsors. So our formal part of the meeting is over.